Okay, so the question is, how do you know what might be conflicting in your game if you use a lot of mods, and how do you fix it? Well, to start out with, there is each mod author is different in how they develop their mods. Sometimes something just works. Just means like barely. It depends on the semantics of it. Um, so let me see if I can try to field that question. Okay, so to start with, you have to me you have two different types of data. Basically, your game engine is a set of conditionals, and those conditionals take data, whether it's in the form of an ESP, which is like I consider an ESP a set of records, and each record has a set of fields, and the fields could represent different things. Like, for example, a gun, like in this screenshot, might have a certain reference number. They call it like a form ID or a reference number, and that reference would then link to specific types of data, which gives the representation of the gun. Not just the texture and the shape, which would be like the mesh or the NIF, but also the ammo type, um, how, uh, how heavy the gun is, the range of the weapon. All of those things could be considered fields in a record called gun or combat rifle. So, because Bethesda does this on a record level, if you look in Xedit, you can see the records in the fields. One Because it does on a record level, one mod might change one field in that record. Another mod could change a different field in that same record, and because the way the game engine works, whatever mod is loaded last has precedence. So let's say your mod changes the ammo type of that weapon, and let's say another mod changes the weight of that weapon. Both mod authors don't really know what mods are going to be in a load order, so they're basing the change against the vanilla data. So that record that they use starts out with the vanilla information. So let's say your mod comes first and you change the ammo type. You're changing the ammo type from vanilla. So in Xedit, you will see that the ammo type started out as vanilla. Let me bring up Xedit real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. Um, all right, let's fire this off. Might take a minute. So you can see where in your mod you might change the ammo type away from vanilla. A mod comes below that, knows nothing about your mod whatsoever, and he also changes against vanilla. But since it's on the record level, it'll load the entire record and then apply his changes to it, which changes yours. And that's what I'm kind of hoping I can see here. We're just going to try to find something that changes something, and we'll see if we can get some. We'll wait till this fully loads, and then we'll see if we can see some conflicts. So Xedit lets you combine the fields from the same record from different mods into a completely new record, like in this case. So in this case, you can see Fallout 4. Here's the original record that was changed, and you can see where the mod author made the changes. Apparently, there is some components or something here that he has removed for whatever reason, and he handles them differently. Not sure how or why I did it, but that to me that's not important. But I can see there's a change. So here, this particular record was changed. Here's the initial. Now, if another mod comes in and changes the same record, you will see what I'm referring to. And I'm pretty sure I can do this down here. Looking at, let me see here. Give me 1 second to find it. Let's take a look at this, which is my Xedit patch. So let's take a look at containers. Here's an example. Now this is an example of what I'm talking about. So here's the original record. Okay, this is where Car Variety changed it, and here's where my patch changed it once again. So this is an example of where I had to patch, instead of patching his mod directly, I created a separate patch. So when the game loads, it loads this record, it overrides it with this record, and then it overrides it with this record. So if there was a field here, or a change here, and a change, let's say this was a change here, and a change here. I'm trying to find one that has a third one, which would probably be a better way to show this. Let's see if a world space is a good example. Let's just grab something. Anything doesn't matter. Let's see what this does. Here's a good example. So here you can see the original record for the world space, and you can see every mod that changes that world, that affects or changes the records in that world space. So let's say that this game wants to modify something in the world space. Like, so let's say Mutant Menagerie wants to change some data, like LOD data. It could change a screen, like a view, like a screen space modifier or world space modifier, which may change the colors of the environment dynamically. If you have another mod that comes out, because you're going against the vanilla data, because you have no idea what mods I'm going to put in my load order, so you can't make a patch for it automatically. So you're going against the vanilla data. And then you make your change. I come in and make another mod that says, oh, I want to do something different with that same data, but I can't, because Bethesda doesn't handle change on a field level, it handles it on a record level. I'm changing that one field against the vanilla. So I'm reloading the vanilla data, changing the field, which actually overrode your change. So that's part of what can cause a conflict. Another conflict can be within the archive itself. So for example, if we take a look at, I've used both Pan NPC and I've used AN Advanced Needs 2, but I'm using Advanced Needs 76 now. So let's take a look at Pan NPC. Okay, so Pan NPC has no, there's no what I call resource files, like textures, NIFs, things like that. There's no resource files that I see that it uses, which means it basically does all of its changes within the ESP itself. Now, I think things like Oblivion and Fallout 4 actually included scripting and even compressed files like scripting and within the actual ESP. I don't know if Fallout 4 does that, so let's assume at this point it does not. Although it could, let's just assume it doesn't. So Pan NPC is changing some kind of data. Here's what I think he's doing. I've not looked at it, but this is what I think he's doing. Bethesda came up with some AI packages for NPCs, such as Flee, Attack, Go for Cover, Advance, things like that. What he does is he does a scan of the area, finds out how many NPCs are available, like how many enemies are available of your faction, what the player is, how the player is geared, whether the player's health is low. He takes a look at certain variables, and then he injects or changes dynamically the NPCs that he scanned in that area that might be attacking the player. So he's dynamically changing their AI based on the situational awareness or circumstances that he's coded. And it does make the game much more fun, and you definitely cannot just walk out in the middle of the street and attack things. But there is no data that can be overwritten there that I see. Now, I haven't parsed ESPs other than just doing it for like just the basic header information. It's coming. I just haven't got to it yet. You can change this if you want. There's different formats you can say you want to see. It's all user configurable, so this is just what I'm showing for me, the things I want to see, but it's not that hard to do. But anyways, and plus I don't want to, just to throw this in there, I don't want to do anything as extensive as Xedit, but I do want to simplify things for the user much. I like simplify it, a lot. Okay, so let's go back into stability. So another thing you can have is the actual data itself. So you can have, for example, I think you were talking about Advanced Needs. I use 76, so his is called Flashy. So let's locate Flashy's stuff. And what we're doing is looking, he calls his, right here. So he calls his Essentials. So if you take a look at the archive, we're going to look for conflicts. Basically, well, Mod Organizer 2, I think he calls it parsing the data files, or parsing, the archives. I do it automatically. It goes fast, even when you're first loading up. You got a heavily modded game. But here you can see where this NIF comes from the original game, and the only thing that I see that if my coding is correct and I haven't it's not a bug in there somewhere, then the only conflict that would exist would be where he changes this NIF, whatever this does, gnat swarm or something. So I'm not sure what he does to it, but he changes this. Maybe he adds something to it. I'm not sure. I don't have the code in here to extract this data and look at it. All that's coming. It's on the list to do. So I can only show you what I have here. So you could have conflicts like textures, meshes, things like that, where the object looks different, the texture is not correct. In one instance, I had installed plutonium and quantum creatures, and it installed a loose texture file, which glowing was also used. It also used the glowing, like rad roaches, also used that same plutonium and quantum rad roach texture. So when it came out as glowing, which should be green, it was blue or this kind of really fiery orange or really strange orange color or a different orange color. That was kind of that. So by I actually disabled those files, or by removing them, it kind of cleared up the problem. But the problem most people have are with crashes. And crashes are kind of interesting because they can be caused by badly formatted data, where like let's say Bethesda in the past had a gun that had a certain color, and they provided a brand new texture for that gun. That takes up a lot of space. So if you have like a materials file, which might change the tint mask, which is the color of the gun, which it just simply changes the tinting, and you build that into the engine, you can actually change the color of something dynamically, such as the sky, color of the sky, weather, things like that. And you can apply it to objects, whether it's specular, like reflective, which looks like a shading map, but it actually determines how much light is reflected off an object or where it might be reflected. So if some of those material data, it has bad data in it, like let's say let's say like a NIF includes pointers to textures, which includes pointers to a material file, and let's say that the texture is missing and the NIF says, oh, I can deal with that. I'm just going to draw the object as being purple, just a big purple object, which means I have no texture. I can't find the texture for it. But let's say in a material file, it's looking for a particular material type, and Bethesda has coded the game engine to look for specific things because it's going to assume the data that it's looking for is the specific data it needs. And if that data is wrong, the engine will crash because there's no conditional check for it. Those things require tools that can literally scan files to determine what might be bad. I don't know if all those tools exist for me, and then eventually for release. I'm doing that a chunk at a time because I don't want to sit there and try to learn what 500 and something mods do. If a mod is poorly written, and I'm not using that derogatory. It's not a derogatory mark. It's not meant to be rude. It's just sometimes people, just think, oh, if I put this here, this works. I don't know why, but it seems to work. And another mod author comes along and says, well, it wasn't used for that. I'm going to use it for what I want to use it for, unaware of the previous mod. And he does his thing. It could break the previous person's mod. So you can have global variables, which are used by everything, or you can have local variables, which are used by, let's say, your a particular mod script. So you have different kind of things like that that can also cause a problem. Let me show you an example with the unofficial patch. Let's take a look at that. All right, so up here, you can see the unofficial patch. So let's take a look at the textures. Let's see what he's done. I don't see anything there. I'm sure that there might be, like I said, there could be a bug in there somewhere. Let's take a look at this and see what we have. So here, technically, you can see there's a lot of files that were changed by the unofficial patch. Quite a few of them, actually. In time, it's on the list where you'll be able to, let's say, select this, and then it'll show you what an object might be. This is a PEX, this is a script, this is a compile script. So you can see where scripts were changed. These would be sounds. You can see where sounds are changed. If I do Workshop Framework, that might be a good one. So let's take a look at Workshop Framework here. Let's show conflicts in. So you can literally show what conflicts exist in Workshop Framework and the rest of my load order. And you can see what would come last. So it looks like Workshop Framework comes last in every single instance. So basically, what I do is what other programmers do is they will take a look at the data. Like I say, Mod Organizer 2 I think calls it parsing. They'll take a look at the data that's in these archives, and then they'll literally say, okay, I found this particular reference in this archive. I'm going to keep scanning my mods. Ooh, I found another reference that overwrites it. So that would be a conflict. So that can cause a problem with scripts, especially I know with Workshop Framework. I think Kinggath had put something in there to actually check for conditions where something could have overwritten the script. Um, so this can cause a conflict too. But like I say, I've used both advanced needs. It's in this load order, and I've used Pan NPC. And right now, everything seems to be going really well. It seems to be pretty solid. I've got one crash that was caused by moving something using place everywhere. And I do believe that's probably more of a mitigation issue because the function to really move objects around and do it the way I was doing it, I don't think really was handled or was considered, and therefore it caused a crash. And if you look at it, even though I was moving, I think it was a power pylon, it does not relate to, if you look, I'll highlight this, it looks like a loose file stream. It is not a node. So they say that's a NIF issue. So I'm guessing what happens is you'll have like so let's say you have a 3D space and you want to move something in a 3D space. The calculations can get pretty intensive. So you got a lot of things you want to move. What's the best way to do it? Well, the best way to do it is for a designer to provide what they call a nav mesh, a 2D map. It's basically like a 2D grid that basically says where I can walk and where I can't. And that's what it calculates its movement on. So if you put objects in that, let's say you have this road and you can only walk on the road, the nav mesh will look like a 2D map, and it'll have, like, let's say green. We'll use green. It just shows where the road is. So as it's calculating its path, it's where's a green pixel. Okay, I got to move up here, so I got to calculate the XY where I'm at to the XY where I'm going. Let's not talk about Z right now, but just XY. So I can calculate that by looking for green pixels. Once I find those green pixels, if I don't find, if I'm drawing a straight line, okay, I'm gonna hit the edge of the road. I'm gonna hit the edge. There's no more green pixels. So now I'm gonna back up so many, and I'm gonna calculate another angle, which is towards my final destination. Therefore, I've created a navigational path. So if you put objects in the way, if the game is aware of that, it should say, okay, so let's say you want to put like a building in the middle of this road. So what you're going to have to do is when you stamp this down, you remove those green pixels. So what you now have is a road that looks broken. It's got this little blank area in it. So when it calculates, it's got to work its way around it. Of course, that's an oversimplified explanation, but that's why things kind of get stuck on objects, because I think the game has not updated the nav meshes properly. It has not combined them or stamped onto the nav mesh things that would be in the way. So like NPCs just start running 100 miles an hour in place because they're running into a wall. It doesn't know to go around it. If that's the case, then this particular bug might be an engine bug because it's not updating something it should, and therefore it caused a crash. I'm not sure what loose file stream means, but like I think usually with bad nodes or corrupted power grids, you'll see like a node where it's like a linked list where one object points to another object, and if you remove the middle object, the object before it should point to that object's next, and then that object's previous, which you remove, should now point to the one before it. You're relinking the list. It could be a mitigation issue where a lot of things are updating lists at the same time. I'm not sure. I've never really looked into it that deep. But that would be the things that can cause the issue. So you'll have things like I say, the ESP can change data at a record level. It can mess things up. It can change things that something needs, and that's more behavioral rather than a complete crash, unless it's like a material or bad data. This can put NIFs in there, which are missing outfits or missing pointers, or material files that can cause crash. Like you could see like a person might be missing their shirt, or whenever they put on an outfit, everything goes, something along those lines. Over here, these are like injected into Fallout 4, this is injected into Script Extender, and the Script Extender hooks Fallout 4. So these can introduce problems as well. They can fix problems. They can also introduce problems. Like, for example, I've seen things where holstered weapons. Let's see if it's like I think it was damage framework, but I think it's holstered weapons. But I'm not sure what it would be called here. Um, it does cause crashes. However, in this playthrough, I have holstered weapons. All the NPCs use it. I have Pan NPC. All the NPCs use it. And they're doing just fine. So this crash was apparently some unhandled condition, which was kind of strange, and it had to do with me moving upon. And it moved right when I was just hitting that down arrow button. After about the 20th time, and I was doing them quick, it decided to 10-6. So it could be the fact that the previous one wasn't done before it fed the next one down, because it is probably piped through a DLL over here. Move everywhere probably is in a DLL. I'm just guessing. Like place, it's probably this one here. I'll highlight it. It's probably this one here. Um, so it just may not have, it may have sent something to the engine. Engine wasn't done. It says, oh, I got another one. I'm going to do this, and then bam, I'll crash. So to test that, I would go back in and move it, but this time move it more slowly and move all of them and just keep doing it for about 5 minutes, see if it crashes, and then try to burn through moving them and see if that causes it, to try to isolate if that was the problem. All right, so that's kind of that. Another thing you can kind of do, what I did here, was to take a look at the different load orders. So you have different load orders, and you can see how the actual stability has improved. If you look at the history for the load order, you can see what kind of crashes occurred when. This is so far back, I don't think the overlays are going to work on it, but it should work. It will work on this one. Where I can go in and you can take a look and you can say, okay, I installed mods, which you can see here during my gaming playthrough. Now, this is a continual playthrough. So as the game, they're different game saves. These represent different game saves, or different, not again, that's incorrect. Not different game saves, but this represents different gaming sessions. So here, this gaming session lasts for 2 hours. You can see the game saves that occurred within that session. So it's not just a single game save. But before this, I actually updated these mods, okay? And that can change a lot of things, cause Papyrus desyncs, and it can mess things up. One of the important things to note, though, is that I was using, I think it was unique NPCs, and that added some world space stuff and changed things that another mod author went in and fixed. And I'm using his changes, and it really seems to have stabilized the load order. Let's see. Let's look back at the summary. So if I take a look, I think I've already done this, but yeah, I've already done this. All right, so if I take a look at this, you can see there were a lot of crashes, and a lot of them, I'm not sure if this will work because a lot of times I remove these files. Okay, this worked. So let's take a look here and see what this was. You can see this is kernel based. So I think this had to do, me personally, I think this had to do like the 100 base, 120, 140, I think this had to do with nav meshes and precombines where the data somehow got corrupted, scrambled. There was just, there was a confusion between the data. That's why I added PRP. I added, his modifications to unique NPC, and that pretty much led to a 2-day, if you look at this, it resets after each day, but I've been able to play 5 hours straight, a little over 5 hours straight. Here's 4 hours straight, 3 hours straight without a crash. Here's 7 hours I played without a crash. Now crashes can happen. It depends on if there's a problem with particular data and when that data is actually accessed. So it could be like, let's say, at a different level or different quest. That's possible. I do know that PRP does help. It did help. The precombines helped. I'm pretty sure unique NPCs helped. Also, if you look at actual installs, I did not install that many mods during the gameplay. Like if you notice, there's no NIFs, there's no scripting. This is all just Swift files. This right here, he did textures, which should be pretty safe as long as they're formatted properly and there's no bad data. Sewers, he changed some things to his locations. I have not went in here yet, so I don't know if I don't think anything would be necessarily baked in because I believe he changed his world spaces within. So within a cell, this cell hasn't been loaded yet, so I think that's okay. I won't know until I go in there and actually take a look. Let's clear all that off. Um, so those are the only things I can think of that might cause, crashes. And a lot of mod authors will say just throw stuff in there one step at a time, and that's true. And that would be a normal way to debug things. But the problem is when you do have a crash, what caused it? Because a lot of users, mod users don't really understand, and me included, because I use mods and I don't really take time to figure out what every single mod does. Um, they don't have the knowledge. Like again, that they don't have the knowledge to understand what happened. Why didn't it work? So they'll post on a forum and say, "Hey, I need some help." And of course, other developers are like, "I don't want to go through this. I've been through this before," and it gets to be difficult. Tools will make that better. It'll alleviate a lot of the problems because you can direct them to tools. Um, but they need the understanding. So, for example, if a gun doesn't work, they'll post on the mod, "Hey, your gun isn't working." And a lot of times, what they're indirectly asking is, what would cause, not that you caused it or your mod is garbage, but what would cause that problem to appear? And that would help them say, "Oh, okay, it must be this." Now, granted, the inner workings of, let's say, the data, the conditionals, scripting, all that kind of stuff would be beyond a user who doesn't really take time to learn it. Therefore, it may seem meaningless, but over time, I think information has a tendency to refine itself to where there's enough understanding of things that pretty much anybody can do it. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking uh, might, like again, the overall, what might be causing the crashes and how to look at them. Because it's either a thing over here or it's a thing in the data. It could also be in the engine too. The engine could be buggy, which everybody knows it pretty much is. Um, but it's pretty solid. Fallout 4 I think is much more solid than Fallout 3 or Vegas. And not against any of those things, but like I say, information and things refine themselves over time. So I hope that helps in some way. If I think of something else, I'll try to post some videos that might help understand a little bit about it and how to resolve the problem. I have a tendency to throw a lot of stuff in the mix, like a lot of mods, and just see exactly what's going to stick and what isn't. And that's not always the best way to do it. But I always kind of look at it as cause and effect. You're telling me that the animation isn't working, so what would animate that gun? And then try to work from there instead of just saying, well, it's this mod author's fault or that mod author's fault. Like I say, sometimes global data can be used, or in the case of the game engine, I think that somehow the scripting engine, somehow, somewhere, there's certain condition exists which scrambles some of the data, which doesn't take long to trickle down through a game save and start corrupting everything across the board. So your game save could become corrupted. You do have a crash, has nothing to do with the mod author, but it has to do with the game engine itself. So that's a possibility. I have a pretty heavily modded game. Um, like I say, there's a lot of mods in here. There's 314. I've got quite a few mods installed. And this game is proving to be pretty stable. I'm using just Workshop Framework, and there's 566 mods in here now. But they could be texture replacers, and then again, it could be where a mod author goes in and makes a change, and I apply his change. So it's basically one texture that can be applied 5 different times, and that counts towards this mod, unless I go in and deactivate them. And a lot of times I will deactivate mods that are overridden by other mods because they're not used anymore. And that's what you kind of see here. So you can't always say that 566 is 566 occurrences of the same texture. So, but I'm just showing you based on this data. It could be, like I say, something along those lines. It could be, I have no idea what that is. It could be data over here. It could just be the game engine. So what I'm saying with, what I'm trying to say with a lot of mods is, it is possible. I'm sure there definitely needs to be some patches in here because maybe some things aren't working 100% as expected. and that's okay. At least it's not crashing. Everything seems to be working fine. Pan MPC works fine. I'm only, like I said, I'm only using Workshop Framework, and I want to get something solid to say, okay, this is good before I add an SS2. And I believe I'm at that point. I am, let's see, just to use this as an example, I am, let me see, I am a level, where am I here? I'm a level 35, right? So I'm a level 35 here. And I've played the game 32 times. I've had a single crash, which I believe it's moving that pylon. It had nothing to do with going into a settlement rendering. It had nothing fast travel, no cells loaded, unloaded, none of those problems. And I do have a lot of DLLs in here. So it can work, and it does work. Like I say, it needs refinement maybe for some simple things that I may not be aware of. It is working. So and when I add SS2, it's not necessarily the fault of that. It could be something that someone didn't think of. It could be a conditional something. I don't know. It could be overusing Fallout Script Extender because there's a lot of injected DLLs. So I won't know until I actually do that and then try to post some information back without going through all the scripting. I don't have time to do that. I will eventually do it. I don't have time right now. This is taking up the majority of my time. So, so a lot of times when people post things that SS2 isn't working, I don't think they're always saying it's your problem. I think they're saying it's an SS2 forum. I have SS2. This isn't moving. Can you possibly tell me what it could be? And I know it could be just about anything. But that's my guess as far as PanMPC injecting behaviors into the AI behavior list, and that's what he does. So it is true if if it's a mitigation issue, it will crash. I have PanMPC. I've had a lot of NPCs attack, and I don't have that problem. So I'm not sure what it is at this point. So let me get some tests going. I hope that helps. I hope there was some information in there you could use. Good luck with it. I'll still be here for quite some time, and I will develop those tools as time permits. And then everybody will be able to have them to kind of do whatever it is they need to do. If another mod author picks it up and does it, fantastic. I'd love to use their mod. Another thing you can do is actually, if you think it's a problem with, like, let's say a mesh, let me show you something here. So some mods will, like, let's say a NIF will actually do some checking on that NIF. Let me see. Let me go up here to the top. Like for example here, you got like precious metals. Okay, let's show the files in here. And here's some. Let's say you got a copper bar, or here, like copper bar. So we'll bring this up, so you can actually see what the copper bar looks like. That way you can tell. You can look at the different, like if there's a conflict, you can look at the two conflicts to see which one it could possibly be. In the gold bar, you can actually load it in NifScope. And NifScope, if it loads it, will actually tell you if there's a problem or if there's not a problem. Again, a tool could do that. I don't have to display the NIF. I just have to load it, check the node linking, and all that kind of stuff to see if it's good. If it's good, then I'm going to ignore it. Otherwise, I'm going to say, hey, there's a problem with this, and this is what it is. And that's something you could easily post back to the mod author. The mod author could use it when he releases his mod to refine his mod and make it better. Those are things that needs to be developed. I can't even talk. Needs to be developed. I do have it on the list to do simply because it doesn't exist yet. But like I said, it's going to be some time before I can get to it. So I hope that helps. And good luck with your modding.